checkmate before dawn. The garden was the only place Mrs. Hartley could have landed. The three of us started our search in a huff. I'm certain this is where she should be, but I don't see her anywhere.
I could go the rest of my life without seeing another old lady leap from a first-floor window.
As we continued to investigate the area, a familiar voice cooed into our ears. Familiar voice cooed. Who's like, is Dad back? I just don't know. The real Mrs. Hartley is having a pleasant holiday in France, together with her husband, who I must note is very alive and in good health. Perhaps they're now twittering words of romance to one another in fair Paris. Oh my god, is it Lupin? The Lupin? Oh, I should have known. It's him.
Of course you would be here.
And he's actually in his Lupin thing! So dashing. Oh, and again, my heart pulled. I'm so very honored to see you again. Your dessert for the eyes, Emily. Oh, you. As we turned, we were met with the beaming smile of this gentleman thief, who looked not the least apprehensive being in the presence of three detectives. What cause there was for so white a smile, we did not know. What are you doing here, Lupin? Forgive me. It was not my intention to startle you. Please, permit me to comment on what a true gentleman you are, Monsieur Holmes. I was moved by your impeccable behavior towards Madame Hartley. The false one, as it were.
If only I could pay you the compliment in turn, but eavesdropping is not something a gentleman would do. You witness everything, then. Were you the one who was pretending to be Mrs. Hartley?
Certainly not. For one, my thefts are limited to works of beauty. And for two, I am not an idiot. I would not have slipped on something as trivial as a missing wedding ring.
You speak very highly of yourself for a simple thief.
The true identity of your Madame Hartley is this chap here. I trust you recognize him. With a certain drama to the reveal, Lupin dragged the unconscious body of the culprit out from some nearby bushes. Okay, I know Lupin Kent, Clark Kent, wants to help Sherlock, but why does Lupin Man, Superman, want to help Sherlock? I mean, Herlock. Bleh. Sherlock, why'd you have to name your son Herlock? It's so dang confusing. He seemed to know where the disguise ended and the face began, as he had no trouble tearing it away to reveal what was underneath.
I do. He's from Spellbound.
It's that man in black who framed you, Holmes! To think we would find him here. Oh, that guy. Huh.
Spellbound was after Mr. Acton for but one reason: money. Should we assume his murder was an argument regarding funds, the pieces fall well into place. That does not yet explain why you're here, Lupin.
Ah, I follow Spellbound closely myself, you see. I'm no stranger to their activities, though the details of our relationship are to remain with me. Now, I should think suspicions may not be cast upon this brute in disguise. It is difficult to overlook fleeing from a window, is it not? The public may now be more inclined to believe your innocence. Lupin, still radiant, must have found the affair amusing, as his smile never once faded. In contrast, Holmes was stiff and serious.
What has inspired you to dance with so dangerous an organization, Lupin?
That is no business of yours. With that, let us dismiss prying for secrets. I've something far more pressing that needs to be said. The reason I've shown myself is to give you a warning, Monsieur Holmes.
A warning?
That's right. Stay put within the safe confines of Scotland Yard and wait for your papa to extend his hand. Do not attempt to solve this alone. Fail to heed me, and this will end in great humiliation for you in front of everyone you hold dear.
Wait, how much do you know, Lupin?
My princess. I cannot tell you, no matter how your tears might captivate me.
Oh, hush! I wouldn't cry for you! Holmes was growing visibly irritated with every word, and as he held me back from my flaring temper, he glared at Lupin.
I'm not interested in your games, nor do I need your advice. I will expose the criminals who thought to frame me, and nothing you or anyone else says will change my mind.
Is that right? What a shame. I suppose we'll see if you still feel that way in due time. You'll have all sorts of fascinating thoughts racing through your mind once your papa is tangled into this web. I wonder if you will be as calm then as you are now.
What?
Mark my words, you'll be paying me a visit before long, and when you do, I shall expect you to bring me far more entertainment than you have today.
Wait! Holmes! What are you doing down there?
We heard the sergeant shouting from above and looked up to see his head floating from the late Mr. Acton's window.
The deuce? Where did the officer charged with watching you go?
Sergeant Ryan seemed to take no notice of the blonde amongst our number, and the reason why came to me quickly. Lupin was gone. As was the man in black. So he only caught him to show us that we were right, that he was a phony old lady. And then vamoosed. Okay.
Huh? When did Lupin disappear? He was just here.
And the man! Goodness, could Lupin have taken him?
I can only think he fled when we were distracted, but we weren't distracted for that long. Whatever the answer, it won't be the last we'll see of him.
What web was he referring to with Holmes's father? It persisted in my thoughts. The confidence in which he spoke rang unmistakably as if he knew what was going to happen to both father and son. It took no time at all for us to be placed under watch once again. With no opportunity to investigate the crime scene, crucial as it was, we were escorted to our homes. I can't understand it. In what way could a man like Lupin be connected to Spellbound? He made it sound like he was planning to do something to Holmes.
Is this about yesterday?
Pendleton was partly occupied clearing away the tea set from breakfast when he asked the question. Yes. We encountered Lupin again at the crime scene yesterday, you see.
He is certainly proving to be a man of many surprises. Quite amusing in itself, since his flair for surprise appearances is not entirely surprising in its own sense.
Quite. And funny we should mention him. There he is in the paper. I picked it up and began to read aloud. Ahem. Gentleman Thief Lupin extends notice to Dearest Detective H.H. Dearest Detective. What a curious headline, I mused. With piqued interest, my eyes glided down to the meat of the story. H.H. stands for Herlock Holmes, doesn't it? I'm astonished Lupin would send something so provocative.
I ask that you not try anything rash, my lady.
I feel you're too quick with your warnings compared to how you used to be.
Well, I don't believe I've had any success in stopping you till now, so warning you is the most I can manage.
Oh. Now I feel guilty. Still, this notice is suspicious when paired with yesterday's events. Might it be a trap? As I sat with paper in hand, musing over the affair, Alicia entered. Pardon me, milady. You have a visitor. Do I? Whom? We weren't expecting anyone, and it's so early in the morning for a sudden visit. I would agree. I did ask if they would wait whilst you finished your breakfast, but, She hanged her head apologetically, and as though on cue, Watson came bursting through the door with all the energy of one far too awake for this time of day. I understand.
Emily! Sorry for barging in so early.
Watson? What has you so flustered? Did something happen?
It's Holmes's dad. He's been taken away by Scotland Yard.
Mr. Holmes has been arrested?
For yesterday's murder. They now suspect he's the culprit.
How did they... How would it... But... Huh?
Scotland Yard, I swear. Truly, the news was a better dosage of morning caffeine than my tea. Than any tea, rather. Okay, before we continue, I actually forgot. I was going to start this episode with this and then just was like, I need to know what happened to the old lady. So, I've been asked about our detective rating and our romance stuff, which I had no idea about, so thank you very much. And it is here. If you go to status, I had no idea this existed, but if you go to status, you can see our detective rank is A. And we filled up our ink. Our ink and feather of Holmes. And as you can see, we have a little bit of Akachi as well. So I thought that was pretty neat. So, in future, I will be keeping a closer eye on these ink bottles. But there. That's how you find it, for anyone interested. Alright, back to the plot twists. I needed no further convincing to accompany Watson to Baker Street. There, the two of us waited for Holmes's return.
Well, did you talk to him?
Only relatives were permitted to see those under arrest by Scotland Yard, and so we were left with no other options but to rely on Holmes for information. That's not good.
I did. Not for long, but long enough. Rumor has it that Mr. Acton's maid, Carrie Front, was murdered in the servants' quarters of the mansion last night.
Huh. How do we know she wasn't murdered before the Carrie we saw at the scene yesterday? Another murder?
And the very maid who pointed the finger at you at that. Indeed. They've determined the cause of death to be cyanide mixed into a cup of tea she had been drinking.
And we come back to the poisoning again.
First a stabbing, and now poison. And where does your dad fit into this? Scotland Yard was apparently informed of his slinking about the crime scene. The work of someone connected to Spellbound, no doubt. If they were able to see through your disguise, it stands to reason they would see through his, too. The Yard's current theory is that he and Miss Front worked in concert to murder Mr. Acton. Then he killed her so she wouldn't become a liability in the future.
Did they have any connection before this?
They've pointed to the blood on my coat and my missing button as evidence father attempted to lead them astray.
By pinning it on his own son. Yes.
If their theory were any more of a joke, I might burst into laughter. A point in its favor is that he did have cyanide on his person. He keeps it for research purposes, of course, but that isn't enough to wipe away suspicion. I told him time and time again this could happen if he didn't start treating such things with more care.
Holmes folded his arms into his chest as if to restrain his growing vexation. Once calm, he began again.
We've since constructed a different theory altogether. We concluded that the main culprit is Miss Front, though she did not act alone.
The false Mrs. Hartley worked with her, I assume.
You assume correctly. We've also found evidence pointing to Miss Front and Mr. Acton being lovers.
Oh, and romance is the plot again. Okay.
Were lovers, rather. She was dismissed and told abruptly that she was to leave the mansion next month.
Alright. Why? Oh.
Her autopsy revealed she was with child. That was why she had to leave? How could anyone with a bloody heart do that?
I don't know. But what an ugly thought it is.
Colonel Morin was the one who wished to extract financial support from Mr. Acton for the organization. This would be a golden chance to eliminate him using Miss Front's personal grudge.
I'm surprised he didn't just try to blackmail him with the fact that she was carrying his baby. Surely that would have been much more effective. The Colonel's name stood out in a lingering sort of fashion.
I had never heard the name until that foggy evening, and now its utterance seemed to bombard me with an increasing frequency.
She had waited until I left the room before making her way there. Ostensibly to bring him the stomach medicine he always takes after meals. In reality, she exchanged it with something to put him to sleep. It was only after the medicine had taken effect that Miss Front used the ornamental sword in the room to end his life. She then concluded the ordeal by meeting with the man in black and letting out a scream, bringing us to the scene.
Then she only claimed you were the culprit to divert everyone's attention from the man in black?
Precisely, Miss Whiteley. Do either of you recall what the false Mrs. Hartley did while still in shock over Mr. Acton's murder?
Yes, I picked up on it right away.
Yes. She was consoled by you, wasn't she? Which now seems very out of place given his true identity. I'll thank you not to remind me, Watson. The memory alone is enough to send me into a spell. But that is neither here nor there. That very moment allowed him to take my button and set the blood to my coat in secrecy. Miss Front then proceeded to draw all attention to her, granting her accomplice enough time to place the button in the corpse's left hand. So there you are. An entirely plausible explanation for both pieces of evidence found at the scene. How on earth did you figure out the two of them were working together? When I passed her on the stairs, I was still in disguise. Now, recall how I was dressed after the murder. I had already revealed myself to you, yes? She should not have been aware that my two faces were one and the same, but she was. And all because her co-conspirator, who knew something of trickery, had enlightened her.
If I understand rightly, you noticed this contradiction the moment you were accused. Why didn't you say anything before?
Because I did not yet know where and who the co-conspirators were. I thought it best to let their scheme proceed as planned and observe for evidence along the way. A worthwhile decision, it would appear. I don't know how you kept your head on the way you did. I can't say I would have done the same.
His actions were indeed worthy of applause, and I would have been quick to remark as much had one more question not come to mind. I looked to Holmes after a pause. But then who killed Carrie Front? Lupin mentioned that he was connected to Spellbound, but you don't think he would do such a thing, do you?
The possibility did cross my mind, but no. He is not the type of man who would commit murder. It's more likely someone else from within the ranks. And whilst we were agreed on the circumstances which took place, my 3 minutes allotted for our visit ended before we could discuss in more detail.
You discussed this in 3 minutes?
3 minutes of substance for the man content to argue for 10 minutes straight over nothing at all.
May I ask if he was in good health?
If good health means the same, then yes. He is a machine with a mind for his investigations and nothing more. One hopes upon meeting him that he would be disconcerted with his new accommodations, but he instead expressed concern for my own well-being.
Holmes. His father, being in a cell, had slowly begun to haunt him externally. Stressed lips were pressed thin, otherwise bright eyes now hung half-lidded, and his color was very grim for even simple fatigue.
Is there nothing we can do? You're still under watch, Holmes, and now your dad's been arrested. Drawing out Spellbound through Mr. Acton is no longer an option for obvious reasons. Are we really so spent on clues?
Silence. This was not just Holmes's response, but mine and Watson's as well. And yet in time, Holmes unfolded his arms and expressed a plan.
We're going to have Lupin tell us what he knows.
Okay. If you're using me as bait, I approve. Our destination was the Tower of London. The three of us paid no mind to the officers assigned to Holmes as we discussed the notice sent by Lupin.
This is something. Lupin's target is a brooch with a cut from the South African Cullinan diamond, Cullinan 7.
I suppose it was only a matter of time before he was lured by the world's largest diamond.
Cullinan 1, or the Great Star of Africa, is set into Her Majesty's royal scepter. 2 to 4 are all set into crowns used by the royal family, I believe. Meanwhile, Cullinan 5 to Cullinan 9 are exhibited in the Tower of London. They're all national treasures in their own right. Still...
Of much more concern in the immediate term was Lupin's notice, proudly presented on the front page as if he were no wanted criminal. It stated,
Gentleman Thief Lupin extends notice to dearest Detective H.H. Tomorrow night, when the clock strikes 9, I shall seduce the Queen of Diamonds, Cullinan the 7th, and escort her away from the Tower of London's exhibition.
Watson and I had prepared ourselves for the event without delay, but Holmes had other ideas.
Lupin's notice is solely meant to taunt me. This entire case is effectively a mess of mine and my father's. It has nothing to do with you, Miss Whiteley. You should return home at once.
No, I won't be going anywhere but with you. Holmes was not prepared for any sort of objection. His eyes widened for a brief moment. And it truly was brief. He resumed his frown before continuing.
I've admitted to your moments of brilliance in certain times. But it baffles me why you would be so determined to involve yourself in this particular case.
It's because... Are we confessing in front of Watson? That's going to be awkward. I cast my eyes downwards. Deep down, I had my answer. Surely you're clever enough to know why, Holmes. I wish to help you, of course. Perhaps it was due to the impending danger, but he seemed less than appreciative to have my hand. He expressed dislike, even.
Miss Whiteley, I'm left wondering if you fully understand the gravity of what lies ahead. Lupin specified me, and only me. His invitation all but states this is a trap to make my predicament worse than it already has become. Danger notwithstanding, I've been backed into a corner to which there is but one means of escape. Accept his invitation and uncover the truth. Should you refuse to stop now, there's every chance you could be left in the same position as me and Father.
I know. I really do. But this case means something to you, doesn't it? I can't go home and pretend it means nothing. I reached for Holmes's arm. I hadn't meant to get in his way. I was not so optimistic to believe such a small act would hold him back. And yet if Holmes's future ended the way I feared so sincerely, there would be no turning back time. I was standing in this moment daring to take the risk, with odds stacked higher than I could see. And yet, it was worth it. If I could save him, then any risk was worth it.
Do what you like.
It's all right?
It is. On the condition that you stay close to me.
He turned on his heel and faced ahead. Oh, thank you, Holmes!
There's no need for you to thank me, though I should hope you'll become sick with all the thanks I'll be giving upon our return.
Huh? Are you... I couldn't find the words. Was he grateful I chose to stay? His turn back gave me no particular hints to his true feelings. Give me a little bit, man. Come on.
We must make haste.
All right.
Wait! Wait!
Holmes was a curt man. He had been since the day we met, and so it was nothing new to me. Which was why I found it unusual to suddenly find it pleasant. Because you are smitten, lady. Whether he could overcome this unfortunate predicament now hinged entirely on our meeting with Lupin. Our confidence renewed, I did away with frivolities and mentally adjusted focus back to the mission at hand. There was work to be done. That evening, the Tower of London was filled with guards from end to end. They're likely here for Lupin, I surmised, as I observed the scene. He would not have an easy time stealing the diamond with this much security. We were well aware of the many tasks to watch over Holmes, who was still a suspect for murder. Lestrade, it's been an age. And here you are, Holmes Jr. You haven't taken to house arrest as well as most. Is staying in one place that damn difficult for you?
Inspector Lestrade's voice carried a sternness that bordered on discomforting to hear.
I won't ask you to rescind your orders, but I should like to humbly request you permit us to assist in guarding the Tower of London tonight.
A suspect for 2 murders asking to play officer? I would have to be mad to accept.
Mad, perhaps, but I have my suspicions that the murders at Mr. Acton's mansion, the murder I was framed for, and tonight's events are connected by a thread.
Listen here, I'm not smitten with the idea of you two being murderers. I don't want to believe it. But I am who I am, and I have a duty to uphold as an inspector.
There is evidence Lupin is connected to a criminal organization. The very thief's testimony, in fact. In light of this, I have something I must ask him.
I can see that it is unusual he would name you in his notice.
Please, Inspector! He did name me, as you said, and I am here to accept his challenge.
I understand that, but still...
Why are you so opposed? Because I'm still a suspect.
Inspector Lestrade fell into deep thought. He only faced Holmes again once ready to respond.
You don't speak of this lightly, now do you?
Correct.
Can you swear that on Her Majesty's ring?
Absolutely.
And if I were to tell you to hand it over for the time being, you would.
If that is what it would take to persuade you, then yes.
But that's proof your abilities were recognized.
Very well, then. Give it.
Holmes handed his ring to the inspector without pause.
Have you thought this through, Inspector? If this turns for the worse, you could lose more than your job.
Were you not aware? They came to witness the day we threw that dastardly thief in handcuffs once and for all. We can't very well turn them away in good conscience, can we?
Thank you very much, Inspector.
Remember, I've accepted your help, but you're still to remain under police watch. I can't compromise on that.
Thank you.
The thanks carried a special, quiet intonation beneath it which did not go unnoticed. Inspector Lestrade, satisfied, turned and departed to continue preparing for the evening ahead elsewhere. With the looming threat of the gentleman thief nearing, he seemed worn thin by the sheer amount of security that was to be arranged under his direction. This is delightful news, isn't it? Now you can accept Lupin's challenge.
Indeed. He is a reputable devil of a man, however. I cannot afford to take my victory for granted. That goes for you as well. You must never take your eyes off of him once he appears.
Of course. I won't. The way in which she said this was very soft. Kind. And I took to that kindness well, nodding firmly in turn. Were anything in this plan to go wrong, the nation would likely view Holmes with more contempt than they did now. But that was why I was here, swearing with all my heart that such a thing would never come. I truly believed in him, and I wanted my support to be his sword in battle. What a girl. The sun continued its gradual descent below the horizon until which 9 p.m., the time Lupin specified, was soon upon us. On the uppermost floor of the tower was a most gorgeous display, and the diamond brooch she laid claim to rested in security. Scotland Yard, ever frustrated with the elusive nature of the evening's antagonist, was determined to ensure that every speck of dust was being accounted for. It was to be assured that not even a mouse could find its way in. Police officers were nearly packed shoulder to shoulder. It was a strange sight. It was a strange sight to see.
Stay very alert. We have only 40 minutes left.
I know. Still, just where did Watson go to get something to eat? He's been gone for ages now.
Ah, but he did say he'd barely eaten all day. He must be famished.
What are you two up to? If you're wondering why I got rid of the text box, I've been wondering if Holmes gave Watson's ring to Lestrade instead of his own. So I've been like, Holmes gave a gentle sigh in the cold night air.
It wasn't long ago when Watson left the vicinity to see if he could find some dinner, or something to nibble on at the very least. That left me and Holmes alone, awaiting his return.
It becomes much too cold, much too fast once the sun is down.
Though I still required a coat during the day, I missed what little warmth the sun provided in the waking hours. So piercing was this particular night that I thought I might freeze to my bones if I stayed idle for long. As the tickle of cold became a prickle, I began to rub my hands together in hopes for a modest heat.
They feel as though they've turned to ice. I wonder how Holmes is faring.
I glanced over in his direction. On closer inspection, his body had a striking rigidness to it. I turned my gaze away and back to my hands. They were on the verge of becoming numb.
Miss Whiteley.
He's rather stiff. Could it be the cold? Or is he anxious for Lupin's arrival?
Miss Whiteley.
Did someone call for me?
First name, boys and girls. We on a first name basis. This is not a drill.
Emily.
Oh! You've never called me by my name before.
This music? Hello? Hello? The change in the music was so unexpected that I looked to him again. Ah! The blush!
Yes, well, I never...
Oh! She hit him back! She got it right back! Go, girl! Get him! Get him, girl! Yes!
Herlock.
It was all I could think to do. Perhaps feeling uncharacteristically meek, he made an effort to observe anything other than me until I said his name. Our eyes met, and then they parted.
Perhaps he thinks me unladylike for calling to him.
Achoo!
Are you cold? You hopeless thing.
With a click of his tongue, he removed his gloves and held them out to me. Oh my gosh, like we're holding hands.
Where are these, Miss Whiteley?
Goodness, but those are yours. Are you certain?
You are cold, yes. These ought to help.
But what about you?
I'll live. I should think it natural you're a bit more delicate with your upbringing. Is that not so?
Quite possibly.
Then wear the gloves.
Very well. Thank you, Holmes. You really are so sweet at times like these.
Of course, they weren't anywhere near a perfect fit. My fingers would perform like a bungling mess if I were to try and do anything whilst wearing them. But they did well to protect me. It was only moments later that I could already feel the life returning to my fingers. Ah! It's a beautiful boy! It's like being in a cozy blanket. I've now a cleaner mind to think up all manner of brilliant crime-solving theories, just like you. As I recalled, Holmes never once let the weather dictate his investigations. It could be a blizzard outside, but he would press on until satisfied.
All this spirit over a pair of gloves. I've never met a detective so fickle. You should be fit to solve crimes at all hours and in all weathers, I say.
That isn't what I meant. He may not be able to resist a dose of cunning with his commentary, but he did call me a detective. It's acceptance in its own sense.
That's quite the grin. It puts the fear of God into me.
Oh, hush! And stop behaving like a schoolyard bully.
Oh, hello. I'll hold your hands with your gloves. Clumsy as the action was with his oversized gloves, I firmly grasped his hands and collected them between mine.
What are you doing?
I'm sharing my warmth. Now we're both saved from the cold.
One moment you chastise me, the next you're set to take my hands. You may be the most unpredictable person I've ever met.
Holmes did not appear to be pleased with this revelation of his, only slightly puffing his lips out to sulk. Even when the moment called for charity, he preferred not to be caught off guard.
I know my intellect cannot quite compare to yours, Holmes, but you should know I would do anything to help you. Whatever I can, I shall do it. I gave one of his hands a tighter squeeze to further express my willing support.
Just do your best not to get under my feet instead.
Our conversation was interrupted by a sudden voice calling from afar.
I found some! Holmes! Emily!
Watson approached with restored vim, most likely from the sandwiches he carried wrapped in wax paper. He couldn't resist taking a bite out of one, I see.
Look here! I brought tea and sandwiches. Hudson gave them to me. Is the tea in this flask wrapped in cloth? Yes, it's not quite as warm as it was, but she said it should be enough to keep most of the heat in. Was all very kind of her.
As always, she'll make a wonderful wife for a good man one day. We three were equally gratified by the offerings and were quick to partake. Watson noticed what I was wearing between bites.
Hold on. Aren't those your gloves, Holmes? Indeed, they are. Charming. Is there any reason you feel the need to stare? Oh! No. There's no reason. I was only thinking that you can be kind on occasion. Have you ever thought to pause and consider if something is worth saying before saying it?